Facing a midlife crisis? Find courage in everyday women's stories. Subscribe to Resilient Women Rising.
How a 53-year-old widowed woman transformed grief into new possibilities. On a cool, overcast morning in a small New England town, Eleanor Ellie Barnes stood at the window of her modest home. At 57, she had seen life remodel itself more times than she could count relationships that had withered away, professional dreams shelved due to circumstance, and the quiet passage of time that often left her feeling both worn and resilient. The town's familiar streets were still lined with aging brick buildings and well-tended gardens, reminders of an era when community and tradition defined daily life. Now, however, Ellie's own life was in a state of flux. Ever since the sudden loss of her husband, Michael, 3 years earlier, Ellie had struggled to regain control of her destiny. Michael's death, a quiet car accident on a rainy night, had shattered the comfortable narrative of her life, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a desperate need to rebuild. The children had grown and moved away. Friends, once steadfast companions, had gradually drifted. In that quiet house filled with half-remembered laughter and lingering moments of grief, Ellie resolved that enough was enough. Her heart, though heavy with loss, held a secret ember of hope that spoke of new beginnings. One morning, as she sipped her lukewarm coffee while gazing out at the awakening town, Ellie noticed a small envelope on the kitchen table, one she did not recall placing there. The envelope was plain, with faded cream paper and her name written in a careful, unadorned script. Without any obvious explanation, the note inside read only, "Sometimes the horizon you long for is hidden in plain sight. Look closely." Those words stirred something within her, a reminder that even in the most unremarkable days, there might lie the spark of change. And so, Ellie decided that it was time to step beyond the boundaries of her sorrow and discover what else life might offer. Ellie's days had settled into a familiar routine at the local community center, where she taught creative writing to adults. It was an outlet, a place where she could share stories and listen to others recount their lives. On Tuesdays, she led a small class in which participants described the most ordinary moments of their day and found beauty in them. For many, it was a respite from the relentless pace of modern life. But for Ellie, it was a gentle confrontation with her past, her regrets, and the quiet hope that the future might hold more than just memories. One rainy afternoon during a class session, a soft-spoken woman with deep brown eyes and a warm accent spoke up. "My mother used to say that every raindrop carries a secret, promise that even storms eventually pass." The words resonated with Ellie, and as she scribbled them into her notebook, she felt the stirrings of a thought that maybe, even now, there was a hidden promise waiting to be uncovered amid her grief. After class, as the students dispersed into the soft drizzle, Ellie lingered. The community center was located in a renovated building on the edge of town, a blend of modern design and rustic charm. Outside, the streets glistened with rain, and people hurried by under colorful umbrellas. Something about that scene, ordinary and yet full of subtle possibilities, stirred in her a desire to see beyond the daily routine. Later that evening, Ellie took a walk under the low-hanging clouds. The pavement reflected myriad colors under the streetlights, and she noticed a small, tucked-away park near the center of town, the kind of place people often overlook. On a weathered bench beneath a grand oak tree, Ellie sat for a long time, breathing in the moist air, feeling an inexplicable pull toward the horizon. In that moment, she decided it was time to confront her own reality and reshape her future. The days that followed marked a period of quiet introspection and gradual change for Ellie. Back home in her aging wood-paneled house, she began rummaging through old boxes stored in the attic, a task she had postponed for too long. Among faded photo albums, scrapbooks, and forgotten letters was a trunk that belonged to her family. Inside that trunk were numerous handwritten letters, mostly addressed to Michael, but one in particular caught her eye. Dated just a few months before Michael's tragic accident, the letter was written in her own hand, a letter that she had written to him when they were younger, full of dreams and plans for their future. The letter's paper was worn, its ink faded by time and sentiment. Reading it now, Ellie was struck by how much had changed and how much remained unsaid. It was as if the words held the blueprint of a life that had been interrupted. abruptly a life that could be rebuilt if only she allowed herself to reclaim the pieces. The letter did not offer grand revelations or cryptic secrets. It simply spoke of love, ambition, and the desire to create a home full of laughter and possibility. But in its simplicity, it carried a profound truth that life, even when fractured, retained the potential for transformation. Moved by this rediscovery, Ellie resolved to reassemble not only the memories of her past, but also to construct a new narrative for herself, a narrative where hope had a tangible, if delicate, place. She began writing daily in a journal, something she hadn't done since Michael's passing. Each entry was a quiet step toward self-reconciliation, a blend of heartache and the hopeful promise of renewal. The past is a collection of moments, some bright, some dark, she wrote one evening, and every moment is a seed that, given time and care, might bloom into something unexpected. As autumn deepened, Ellie's routine shifted subtly. The casual inspiration from the community center and the dusty memories from the attic merged to nudge her out of her isolation. One crisp morning, while walking through town, she noticed an unfamiliar flyer posted on a telephone pole. It was printed on simple, unadorned paper and announced a local meeting for community renewal, a forum where residents shared stories of personal change and local improvement projects. There was no flashy name, no glamorous promise. It was straightforward, just as she liked. That evening, beneath a gray sky, Ellie decided to attend the meeting. The venue was a converted community hall on the outskirts of town, repurposed to serve as a meeting place for ordinary people with extraordinary resilience. In a large circle of folding chairs, neighbors of diverse backgrounds, an Asian American retired teacher, an African American social worker, a Hispanic small business owner, and others shared their experiences of loss, hope, and the determination to rebuild. An older gentleman with piercing blue eyes recounted how he had lost his wife to illness, only to find a surprising joy in dedicating himself to a local charity that now offered support to widowed seniors. A middle-aged woman spoke of overcoming financial ruin and the shame that had once held her back, finding empowerment in community cooperation. Each story was raw, honest, and deeply moving. When it was Ellie's turn, her voice trembled at first. "I used to believe that the quiet corners of life were where all our pain ended," she admitted. "But I've come to realize that within those very corners lie the seeds of change." Her words, sincere and unvarnished, resonated with the audience. The meeting ended with a collective sense of hope, a promise that even the most ordinary lives could find renewal through shared struggle and mutual support. Inspired by that evening, Ellie began to see her world in a different light. The isolation she had clung to was slowly giving way to a belief that small acts of conversation here, a shared smile, there could weave a new tapestry of connection. She decided that she would not let the weight of the past determine her future. Following the community forum, Ellie made a bold decision. She would reach out to those from her past, whom she had left behind due to years of separation and unspoken grievances. The task was daunting, like piecing together a jigsaw puzzle whose image had faded with time, but she was determined. First, she sent a letter to her estranged sister, Marlene, who had moved from their hometown in upstate New York to a quiet suburb in New Jersey decades ago. The letter was simple, devoid of melodrama, and full of the honest confessions of one heart reaching out. "I miss the warmth of our shared memories and the laughter we once knew. Perhaps with time and open hearts, we can find our way back to each other." Marlene responded tentatively. They arranged to meet at a small cafe along a tree-lined street in New Jersey, a place where time seemed to slow down. Their reunion was awkward at first, strained smiles, long pauses, but gradually, as they sipped hot coffee and reminisced about childhood escapades, the old bond began to re-emerge. Marlene admitted that she had harbored her own regrets and that the years had softened even the most bitter memories. It was not a grand reconciliation, but a small, significant step, a fragile bridge being rebuilt. Encouraged by this, Ellie reached out to other family members and old friends. At a modest dinner in a familiar hometown restaurant, she met with her cousin, a jovial man of mixed heritage, and an old college friend who had become a community organizer. Over shared stories and gentle laughter, they all began to unravel the tangled threads of past misunderstandings. The conversations were at times painful, at times heartwarming, but they all carried one undeniable message that the future was a blank canvas, waiting for them to paint anew. Emboldened by her personal reconnections, Ellie decided to channel her renewed energy into reviving the community around her. She had spent years working quietly as a high school English teacher, imparting literature and life lessons to young minds. Yet, she had long suppressed her own creative passions, fearing that pursuing them might bring more pain than solace. Now, spurred on by the evening forum and the tentative reuniting with family, she resolved to step into the light. Ellie recalled a hobby from her youth: gardening. In the garden of the old family home, once vibrant with flowers and laughter, she saw an opportunity to begin anew. Not only could the garden provide a place of solace for herself, but it could also become a community gathering spot, a living symbol of renewal. She reached out to neighbors of varied backgrounds, an African-American retiree known for his expert touch with roses, a young South Asian artist who had recently relocated to the neighborhood, and a local couple of Hispanic descent who organized weekend farmers markets. Together, they cleared away the overgrown vines, repainted the weathered fence, and planted new beds of flowers that burst into color with each season. As the garden slowly flourished, Ellie began hosting small gatherings there. These ranged from poetry readings to informal storytelling sessions where community members shared personal sagas of loss and hope. The garden, with its gentle rustling of leaves and the ever-present scent of fresh earth, became a sanctuary, a place where each person could find solace and strength. At one such gathering, under the glow of string lights, Ellie recited a few lines from a poem that had once comforted her during lonely nights beneath the sky's vast, quiet dome. Our hearts are free to wander, to roam in every tear. A seed is sown. From loss, a vibrant future is grown. The audience, made up of people from every walk of life, listened intently. Their eyes reflected shared struggles, but also the promise that no one was ever truly alone. Reinvigorated by her successes on the personal front, Ellie began to consider her professional life anew. Her years as a high school teacher had afforded her the opportunity to connect with youth, but she also had a passion for writing, a passion she had shelved when life grew too heavy. She remembered an unfinished manuscript from her early 30s, a series of reflections on love, loss, and the resilience of the human spirit. In the quiet hours of early mornings, with the town still shrouded in mist, she dusted off that old manuscript and began to edit it, pouring into it the lessons she had learned over the past few years. As weeks turned into months, her writing took on a richer, more resonant tone, a blend of raw emotion and carefully honed wisdom. Friends from the community forum began to encourage her, suggesting that her words could touch the lives of many. An invitation came from a local publisher interested in compiling stories of personal transformation. Although Ellie was hesitant, fearing that opening up might expose wounds too deep to heal, she eventually agreed. Working late into the night, rewriting chapters and weaving in the subtleties of her journey, she transformed the manuscript into a powerful memoir of a life that had once seemed defined by loss, but was now characterized by rebirth. This memoir, while deeply personal, was also a universal message that the scars we bear are the building blocks of our future, and that every ending is a prelude to a vibrant new beginning. The work, known only by its thematic essence rather than any explicit title that could be looked up, soon gained attention as a raw, honest account of living through hardship and emerging stronger on the other side. Yet life was not without its uncertainties. Not every step was met with applause or unqualified joy. There were moments when Ellie felt the weight of old regrets pressing down on her, when the memories of past betrayals seemed too heavy to shoulder. At times, she questioned whether the bridges she had rebuilt were strong enough to carry the burden of accumulated sorrow and new challenges alike. One chilly winter evening, as the wind howled outside her home and the new manuscript lay half-finished on her desk, Ellie received an unexpected phone call. It was from a distant relative, a woman she had not spoken to in decades, from a family branch that had long been estranged. The relative's tone was hesitant but earnest. "Ellie," she said, "I've been keeping a secret that I think you deserve to know about our family. It might change everything you believe about our past." The The conversation ended before any real details could be divulged, leaving Ellie with more questions than answers. That night, as she sat by the flickering light of a fireplace in her living room, Ellie found herself torn between the comfort of what she had rebuilt and the lure of confronting old, hidden truths. The voice from that call urged her to step further into the darkness of the past, to excavate long-buried memories. Yet, in her heart, she also knew that some wounds, though painful, had already served their purpose in teaching her the strength of renewal. Determined to forge ahead, Ellie resolved that whatever secrets lay in wait, she would confront them on her terms. Every mystery of the past holds the promise of understanding, she murmured to herself. But I must choose how to let it shape my future, not let it shatter what I have built. Spring arrived with a gentle warmth that softened even the winter's harsh edges. The community garden that Ellie had nurtured blossomed into a riot of color, attracting not just local residents, but also visitors from nearby towns. The space had become a hub for collective healing and creative expression, a living symbol of what can be achieved when individuals come together to rebuild what was once broken. At a small community festival held in the garden one sunlit afternoon, Ellie shared her memoir's message with an audience that ranged in age, ethnicity, and background. There were retirees who had once weathered similar storms, young professionals eager to build a future unconstrained by the past, and families who understood the complexities of healing. As she spoke about the importance of forging new paths while honoring the pain of what once was, the crowd listened in rapt silence. In that moment, Ellie realized that the journey toward renewal was not a solitary endeavor. It was a shared voyage where every story, every tear, and every smile contributed to a greater tapestry of hope. The festival ended with soft music, communal dining, and promises exchanged under a twilight sky filled with starlight. Ellie's voice, steady and sure, became the anthem of a community that had rediscovered its strength through shared experiences. Chapter 9. The Edge of Tomorrow. Years passed, and the city around Ellie continued to evolve. The small town in New England transformed gradually as new businesses sprouted alongside weathered shops. The community garden and cultural hub served as a reminder that even amid change, there was beauty in continuity and resilience. Ellie's personal journey had taken her from the quiet devastation of loss to the empowering realm of self-renewal. Her memoir was published an anonymous work known only by its thematic impact, not by any discernible title that could be traced online, and it resonated with readers who had similarly rebuilt their lives after hardship. One particular evening, after a long day of community work and reflection, Ellie sat in a quaint tea room with a group of longtime friends and new acquaintances. As laughter and heartfelt stories mingled in the warm ambiance, a young woman approached her timidly. "Miss Barnes," she said, eyes glistening with hope, "I read your words a few weeks ago. They gave me the courage to face my own challenges." "Thank you." That simple exchange struck Ellie deeply. It was a moment where the impact of her journey became tangible, the influence of resilience echoing in the lives of others. It affirmed her belief that every scar was, in fact, a stepping stone to a brighter, reimagined future. Yet, not every revelation was wrapped in kindness. On a stormy night, when the memories of past betrayals threatened to overwhelm her, Ellie received an anonymous message on her burner phone. The cryptic text simply stated, "Some chapters are best left closed." For a long moment, fear crept into her heart. But recalling the strength she had gathered over years of self-discovery, she decided to leave the message unanswered. It was a reminder that even when shadows lurked in the edges of new beginnings, the light of one's own courage could outshine them. By her late 50s, Ellie had transformed her life into a mosaic of triumph, vulnerability, and steadfast hope. The very house where she once mourned in silence now echoed with laughter and lively conversation. Community members, drawn by the sense of belonging fostered by the cultural hub and garden, frequented her home as much as the renovated town center. Ellie had also found unexpected companionship. A quiet, thoughtful man named Marcusa, retired engineer of mixed heritage, had gradually become a trusted friend and confidant. Their bond was unpretentious and built on shared experiences of loss, renewal, and the delicate art of listening. Though romance did not dominate their relationship, it was a gentle promise of mutual support and understanding, a small light amid an ever-changing world. Marcus's steady presence helped Ellie in ways she could not have foreseen. Together, they embarked on small projects restoring a neglected community library, organizing evening lectures on local history, and even creating a makeshift art studio in a repurposed shed. In these endeavors, Ellie saw that building new bridges, whether between people or within oneself, was a continuous, collaborative process. At one celebratory event marking the 5th anniversary of the garden's transformation, Ellie stood on a modest stage in front of an audience comprising longtime residents and curious visitors alike. In her measured, sincere voice, she recounted her journey, the quiet pain of loss, the gradual mending of broken ties, and the overwhelming joy found in reclaiming one's own strength. Our lives are much like the weathered stones in an old wall, she said. Over time, even the roughest stone can be polished by the gentle hands of community and the enduring spirit of hope. The audience responded with a heartfelt standing ovation, a moment of catharsis that affirmed the collective belief that every ending could herald a new beginning. In the years that followed, the quiet New England town evolved, yet the legacy of renewal that Ellie had kindled continued to resonate. The community garden blossomed into a full-fledged cultural center, where art, literature, and music converged, a place that served as a living monument to the power of transformation. Ellie's personal memoir, a raw and unfiltered account of her journey, circulated widely not as a title to be searched online, but as an inspiration whispered from one heart to another. One crisp autumn morning, as golden leaves danced in the gentle breeze and the light filtered through ancient oak trees, Ellie sat on a weathered bench in the garden. In her hand, she clutched a journal filled with reflections, sketches, and half-remembered dreams. She looked out over a community that had once been fragmented but was now united in its shared pursuit of happiness and healing. A young neighbor whose eyes sparkled with a sense of possibility approached her timidly. "Miss Barnes, your story made me believe that my own past isn't a chain holding me back. It's a guide to my future." Ellie smiled warmly, her eyes filled with quiet wisdom. Every scar, every memory, even the painful one, are the threads that weave the tapestry of who we are. What matters is that you keep building your bridge one honest step at a time. In that moment, under the endless expanse of a clear blue sky, Ellie knew that the horizon was never truly fixed. Every day was a promise, a new canvas upon which to paint a future filled with resilience, grace, and the quiet beauty of rebirth.